All right, let's see some pictures. Now, it's one thing to go to California and photograph the surfers. I try and go a little further because surfing, I find surfing easy. You know, all you need is a big lens, you know, and shoot at a high speed, and you're going to get some good shots. But this is much more interesting, the introverted moments. This shows what you can do with a cell phone, just photographing abstracts in the sand. My wife asked why I took this picture, and I said, it was just all a matter of the textures. There was so many textures involved and shapes. Same thing there, you know, it's all dead seafood, or seashells actually. So when you go to the beach and you've had it with the swimming, look around, there are plenty of pictures.
Is that a nest?
I'm sorry?
Oh, I was just asking, what was that? Is it a nest?
Say again, please.
Is that a nest?
A net.
Nest.
Spell N-E-T?
N-E-S-T.
N-E-F-T?
N-E-S-T.
Oh, yeah, of a vulture.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm only kidding. I don't know what the heck that was. Look at the size of that thing. Actually, it might be an elephant's nest, come to think of it. I love looking for abstract patterns, though, you know, there's a whole nother side of my brain, and I don't know how these things work out. My wife's a psychologist. She could probably explain it to me, and I don't really want it explained. I just want to be able to do it. My passion is the streets. But when I go to the beach, I look for abstracts like this and rhythms. And you kind of equate it with music, or at least I do. Here's where Photoshop comes in. That sky is not that color. I put that color there. And that's when you become, and I'm sure painters would hate this, but you become more painterly with your photographs because you can control the color. Normally you press the button, you look at it, and you go, what I see is what I get. This whole new technology advances you as an artist to do whatever you want. You know, in the old days, you shoot this with Kodachrome, you got what you got. And the same thing here. I'm just looking for patterns and interesting things to photograph. And the light helps. I want to tell you about a picture I took this Thanksgiving at a friend's house. It's all tungsten light, and I love tungsten light because I love the warmth of it. And I'm sorry?
What's constant light?
No, tungsten light. And two boys are sitting on a sofa, you know, playing with their cell phones and doing things. And I looked at the picture and I instantly went to something in my head. I made a print and I signed it, photographed by Mel DiGiacomo, lighting by Michelangelo Caravaggio. And this is another reason why I tell, especially young students, don't just look at photographs, look at paintings, look at sculpture. Look at lithographs, woodcuts, lino cuts, any of the arts. They're all interrelated. And again, you know, this, you get a nice feeling of movement in here, and yet it's a still photograph. And by the way, that's a little nest, this one here. Now, you'll see most of these are shot with a wide-angle lens. The previous shot of the birds was with an 80 to 200 zoom. I don't want to walk around with a lot of stuff. I used to when I was shooting sports. You know, you're walking with a 600 and a monopod here, a 400 and a monopod here. Around your neck, you have a small Leica and a zoom, a fanny pack full of film, and a light meter. And all of a sudden, you're 35, 45 pounds over weight. You're heavy. And those lenses, you know, as you're walking or running, you know, and a lot of times you're running on a football sideline or at a tennis match, you're running up and down the sideline and those cameras are banging into each other and you're going back and forth. I've had 7 hip operations. And one of the reasons that I attribute that to is carrying all that heavy equipment. And I always tell guys like Al Bello, who's a great shooter, who works for Getty, I said, you're young yet. Give it another 10 or 15 years, and all of a sudden your knee, your ankle, your hip, something's going to go. So lighten up now. Fortunately, manufacturers are making their cameras smaller and lighter. You know, like I'm using the Leica Q, which is wonderful because it's small. I love the Canon 5D Mark III, but that's a beast. You know, that's a heavy camera. And the other thing about that, and I was telling this young lady, you are young, aren't you? Yes, thank you very much. Anyway, the minute you pick up your Nikon or my Canon, somebody sees it and they go, oh, he's a pro. You know, or I hear this all the time. That's a nice camera. I actually had a woman tell me she was considering hiring me to photograph her daughter's wedding, but her brother-in-law just got a new camera and it takes great pictures. I said, please do me a big favor, write down the name of that camera, because I'll probably get 2 or 3 of them, you know. And I had another woman, and this is what's killing pros today. Woman calls and she said, we were going to use you, but my daughter, who's the bride, all her friends have iPhone 7s, and they're going to take the pictures at the wedding. I said, okay, would you like my booklet on vision? You know, maybe that'll help them. And this is what in many respects is hurting professional photographers. A lot of guys I know are calling me and saying, you know, I'm going out of business, I'm selling my stuff, do you want to do it? A guy named John Ferrantino, a great shooter. He's making chili now, and he's selling it in farmers markets because he can't make a living as a photographer. And it's hurting me in many respects too, and I'd like to teach. That's the good news. The bad news is all the guys like me are teaching. So there are no teaching jobs open. So if any of you hear of a teaching job, I want to hear about it. You'll all be asked questions on the way out. More rocks and pebbles in the sand. You know, it's funny, when an Italian sees that, I don't see it as mussels and little clams and everything. That's something to eat. It's the way Italians look at mussels. Another picture that doesn't look like this when it comes out of the camera. This is Photoshop. And when you knock it down 2 to 3 stops, this is what you get. This is the easy stuff, I think, anyway. This is shot with an 80 to 200. If I had a 400 or a 600, I'd be a lot tighter and, you know, be really an exciting. It's not that it's a bad image now. This is something my son and I discovered when he's out in LA making movies, and I went out to visit him. And we went to an aquarium. And those things are ripe for photographs. So if you get a chance to visit any aquarium, because they're beautifully lit, and a lot of it with natural light, and you get stuff like that. Same thing there. And again, I'm playing in Photoshop. I'm deepening that quite a bit. You know, if you pay attention, you get something very surreal like this. I found out very early down at San Onofre, what you do is you show up with a bunch of bread in your fanny pack or crackers, and you want the birds to come closer. You throw up the stuff in the air, but you keep it low so they come closer. And I zone focus with the Leica. This way I don't have to focus the camera. I just hold it up, and I know I'm in focus from 3 feet to infinity. So I'm throwing it up with this and like that, and it's a grab shot. You know, I might have taken 40 pictures like that and only one came out. But that's all you care about. And you didn't know that unless I told you. Children. Uh-oh. That's my long-suffering son. Look at him. You don't ever want to lose a soccer game because that's what you get. There he is. And television is very important in children's lives, and we always made sure he watched the best. There's nothing like Scooby-Doo as far as I'm concerned. Scooby-Doo and spaghetti. All right, where have you two been?
Stuck on the train.
No, it's on the train. Now, you know, if you don't want to take a chance, don't become a photographer. It's about taking chances all the time. And I'm with a friend of mine's kids in the yard. I've got a flash on the camera, the 20D. Again, it's pre-focused, it's zone focused. And I want that thing coming right at me. And you're going to get hit. You're going to get hit a lot. But when you get the one shot, that's worth all the hits. So what I'm saying to you is move in and get close, especially with children. At 11 years old, it's tough being Jewish because pulling that thing over your head like that thing was heavy. That's a selfie of sorts. That's my gallery. And I just like identifying who I am by photographing my surroundings. I've told this before, so any of you who have heard this, if you want to leave the room, you can. But I always advise people to get close. And don't get close with a long lens by standing on the sideline, but move in and put on a 21, a 24, or a 28. You can do it with a 35, but I prefer those three. And you get close. And somebody asked me, well, how do you do that and not be noticed? And the answer to that came from Dorothea Lange. How many hands know Dorothea Lange? All right, sit down, that's enough. It's an intelligent audience, just what I need. And Dorothea was born, was Stieglitz in Hoboken, New Jersey. And that's where I'm from that area. I used to play basketball with the Hoboken Y all the time. And one day I showed up and I was early and none of the guys had been there yet, so I decided to go for a walk. And there's a curio shop there. And I'm inside and I'm walking around. And Dorothea Lange, when asked how she got so close, and it was specifically the photograph of the migrant mother where she's, just right next to her with her rollie. And she said, I put on my cloak of invisibility. Now that's more a metaphor than a wisecrack. And so I'm walking around this little curio shop, and I look in the back, and I saw something that really piqued my interest. I went back, and there's this cloak hanging on a hook, and nobody's paying attention to it. And I took it off, and I looked at it, and opened it up, and inside it said, "Property of D. Lang." I said, "Oh, this must be her cloak of invisibility." So I put it on like the little Jewish kid. I swung it over my head, and I put it on like that, and I walked out. I never paid for it. Nobody saw me. I had my cloak of invisibility on. But her point and mine is, get close, get in the middle of things, and you will, after a while, people will be used to you being there, and you will become invisible. And shoot with your wide-angle lens where you have some depth of field and some forgiveness if you miss the focus. But just move in and stay there. Right in the same area, Hoboken, Jersey City. This is Jersey City. And this is all gone. And in a way, it's sad. Because, you know, it was, in those days, it was concrete and Cubans, you know, and Puerto Ricans. And all these buildings are gone. It's all been gentrified. So now they have these Donald Trump type buildings there. They're beautiful glass buildings. They're not really beautiful, not in my eyes. It looks like they were assembled with Legos, but they have windows in them. And all of this is gone. And I told somebody I'd love to go back and do some research and find out where these people are. Because they were dispossessed. They had to go somewhere. So where did they go? And who are they now? This is what I'm talking about. This whole area is gone. That pier is gone. There's a Hyatt hotel on that pier right now. And I used to go down there all the time in the summer, 1980. And I got along well with the kids. I played on the streets myself, so I understood them and they understood me. And this is what I mean. I'm over at a friend of mine's house, and I'm just following the kids around, and they're paying no attention to me. That's the beauty of kids, is they'll ignore you. Don't worry about that. You know, it's adults that don't. Because the minute an adult sees you with a camera, they don't, wait a second, how do I look? You know, forget it. Jay Maisel, exactly. And his daughter, who is now 24, 25, beautiful child. This is a picture I was hired to do of this woman's children. And I know it's not something she wanted, but I wanted it. You know, I did a whole bunch of color stuff for her, and she was very happy with it. But this, for me, was a lot better and more powerful. The mischievous one on the left is my son, who is now making movies. So remember the name, Anthony DiGiacomo. Antigua in the West Indies, tennis coach, little girl in the school, small schools down in Antigua. This is a friend of mine and his kids, and they're behind in another room, and there's a glass door. And I kept looking through the glass door, and I saw all of this together when I put up my camera. And I said, this is really going to be a strange picture, but it's going to be interesting strange. And you can see my hand on the, what is it, left side? You can see my hand in there, and all the kids and the lens, whatever. So again, it's taking chances. I mean, how many people would really take that and they go, oh, no, I can't take that. I'm reflected in the thing. Use your reflection as part of the composition. Was that you as a little boy? I think that might have been you. Jersey City again. You know, and again, you get in the middle of things. This is the thing I find the most difficult for me, is portraiture. I don't think I'm very good at it. But if they play by my rules, once in a while I get a decent picture. And he's a volunteer fireman, he's also a photographer, and he knows what I want. Just look at the camera with no expression. Just look at it. You don't have to look sad or happy, just look at the camera. I'm interested in your countenance. This is strange in the sense that this was taken in China, and there's this little child sleeping on the street. And you never see that in China. Remember, this is a communist country. Are we streaming live to China too, Matt? Well, I hope so, because they're going to see this and they'll never let me back in the country. Anyway, and see how tentative the man there is. He doesn't know what to make of this. So I was fortunate to be at the right place at the right time. England. My friend and his nephew, Steve Archella. Bless you. Try not to interrupt more than once. I love that. No kids, pets okay. (1980), so it's quite different now down there. All those piers are gone. And this is one of the few photographs I have shooting in the opposite direction from the World Trade Center. And this way you see the Empire State Building. I don't have many like that. So that pleases me that I do have that. This picture is so nice I repeated it twice. When I was younger, I used to see pictures in the Daily News and the Post. You know, when the temperature got in the 90s or the hundreds, you can hear the editors in the newsroom yelling to one of the photographers, Danny, go up to Harlem, or Spanish Harlem, get those cute kids running around by opening fire hydrants. Yeah, okay. But the photographers always stood on a safe platform. They'd stand on the sidewalk, and with a long lens, like a 200 or a 300, they just shoot the kids running around in the water, and they go back, give them the film, process the film, and they'd run it, and there it is. You know, heat wave hits New York City, and they'd show a picture of a bunch of kids running around in the water. I was never satisfied with those pictures, because I used to say the pictures are in the water. They're not outside looking in, they're in looking in. So I got one of those little disposable cameras, you know, the waterproof things, and I went in the water. And that's where I felt the picture should be. Again, if you're timid and you don't want to take chances, and I'm not going to insult anybody here, I don't think, become a plumber, an electrician, you know. But photography requires taking chances. And you suffer with the results. You know what's missing in this photograph, a lot of, and including me, because it took me a while to finally see it, is the two little kids in the background on the bicycles. You know, I was so entranced by these kids pulling the other kid out of the water. This is the beauty about inner cities, is these kids will find anything to play with. It's all about play. And there's nothing new and fancy about this, and it can be a little rough. You know, you slip and you fall and you cut yourself or whatever. That's a heck of a swimming hole, the Hudson River. The other thing about shooting with the wide-angle lens, and you get close, is you bring the viewer with you. You know, if I'm shooting with a long lens, I flatten everything, and the viewer's on the sideline like I am. But with the wide-angle lens, you're actually bringing the viewer. I'm bringing all of you in there to be part of this scene.
What lens are you using here?
I'm sorry?
What lens are you using here?
What lens?
Yeah.
Question is, Matt, what lens? I'm strictly a one lens shooter down there, 28 millimeter on a Leica.
Okay.
And the reason I like that is because I used to zone focus quite a bit. And that allowed me to be quick. Because these things happen quick. These kids happen quick. So I didn't have to focus, just pick it up real quickly and shoot. And you get these five knuckleheads. It's my kind of kids, though. I love these kids. There we are. 40 pounds lighter with a Michigan shirt and needing a desperate haircut. Now, this is what I mean about inner city and how the kids are tough. See the wheel missing from that thing? Now, let's face it, if my kid, your kids, broke a wheel like that, they come in and go, I broke my wheel on the thing, come on, let's go back to Kmart and get a new one. There were no Kmarts there in those days. And if there were, these kids couldn't afford them. So they played with what they had. And they were none the worse for wear, quite frankly. And you know, another thing, you look at a picture like this and you go, oh, it's a nice shot, et cetera, et cetera. But there was a guy named Mike Schifrin, Myron Mike Schifrin, who was a printer when I was first starting off. And I brought all my black and whites to Mike. Mike was a genius, and I use that term advisedly. He used to print for Irving Penn. And he was about the same price that Modern Age was at that time. But Mike was different. Mike knew how to use ferrocyanide, bleach, to sculpt with bleach in his pictures. And they were intriguing. They were so beautiful, in great depth. They want to come in? Come in. Come on, Jack. There you go. Sorry, folks. So what I did with the buildings on the left, the smaller ones, you know, in Photoshop, I lightened them up because I wanted to give some depth to the photograph. And that's what Mike used to do with bleach. And that's a technique I learned from him. So, and it's the same thing with the cloud, to give the cloud a little highlight, a little depth. and some texture to it. This is part of the California series projects that I do. My sister lives in California, and it's just so bloody boring down where she is. And I don't know what I'm going to do down there. I mean, let's face it. The only time they shoot is early in the morning and late in the afternoon. The rest of the day, the lighting is flat and dull and horrific. So I used to go in her pool, and I'd throw leaves in the pool, and I'd just photograph the leaves, and I found them more interesting that way. And again, a lot is done in Photoshop. You guys know what a wet down is? You don't? Well, leave the room if you don't know what. I'm not going to explain everything to you. But, sorry? Yeah, you've been here before, haven't you? A wet down is exactly what he said. When a volunteer fire department gets a new apparatus, the word gets out, and other volunteer fire departments show up to, quote, baptize this new baby. And the result is they have a water fight back and forth. And it can be deadly for a photographer, because my type of photography, I'm not going to shoot it with a long lens, which is easy. I want it with a wide angle lens. I want to bring the viewer in the middle of the fight. So you got to get close. So you're going to get wet, your cameras are going to get wet, and if the guy with that hose all of a sudden turns and hits you, you can get knocked back 10 or 15 feet. So you got to be careful. And you can see how powerful those hoses are. But the pictures are there. That's a long lens. You know, and I'll follow these guys all the way up and just keep shooting. See the power in those suckers? And I'm not more than 4 or 5 feet away from these guys. I'm right next to them. But again, I find the pictures a hell of a lot more interesting. You know, when you have that wide angle lens on and you're bringing the viewer inside with you. And then once in a while you get lucky. Now, you're all New Yorkers, right? Even if you live in Jersey. Mark, you're from Maine. Upstate. Well, that's the same thing. But it's not New York. And don't try and, Rochester is not New York. New York is New York.
I'm not Rochester, 3 miles from the Canadian border.
That's why he has a different accent than me. And you'll notice that the way we talk. Well, anyway, there are so many interesting things to shoot in New York in terms of parades. You get the Puerto Rican Day Parade, the Columbus Day Parade, the Easter Parade, the gay pride parade. There are parades all over the place. And I told a friend of mine, when he wanted to photograph the gay pride parade, I said, forget the parade. You're not going to get in there because you need a credential and the cops are going to keep you back. And who the heck wants to stand on the side just taking pictures of people marching past you? I said, go to the end of the parade when it breaks down. That's when it's fun. And that's where you really get the best photographs. He did that, and he sent me the nicest note saying thank you, that it made my photos. Yeah. My mother-in-law, no mother-in-law jokes, that's terrible. My wife hears that, she'll kill me. This is the zombie parade, which is a really silly thing they do down in Asbury Park. And in a lot of situations, I will control whatever I can. Generally, I want candid photographs, but sometimes their candid stuff is so bad, so I control it, and I put this one individual on this one wall, and I like that little gravestone on the left-hand side. This is the Mermaids parade in Coney Island. You ever been there?
Been in it.
That's a zoo and a half, that place. And again, I could care less about the parade. I wait until the parade breaks down and I go up on the boardwalk where all the kids come, or people come, and it's all broken down. This guy shows up every year at the Easter parade. And I apologized to him. I said, I still haven't repented, but I'm here for you, pal. You know, there are sometimes, I mean, I see in black and white, but every once in a while there's a picture that really demands to be taken in color. You know, and this one, to me, that's what happened here. Same thing with this girl. Easter parade. There's a wonderful line in a Marx Brothers movie where Groucho's dancing with this woman, and she goes, "Hold me closer," and he pulls her in. She goes, "Closer," and he pulls her in. She goes, "Closer." He goes, "If I was any closer to you, I'd be in back of you." That's what I felt like here. I was so close to them. I know I'm going to be in back of them at any minute because I keep moving in. And I think it was Robert Capa who said, if your pictures aren't good enough, you're probably not close enough. Easter parade with all their bonnets, you know, they're there. And they're also narcissistic. So you're not going to get anybody yelling at you for telling me, don't take my picture. Again, had to be in color. For me, this is the greatest place to shoot in New York City, and that's Union Square. Because there's just so much going on there and so much silliness. I was in my car, and you always, I don't know about you guys, but I always have my camera ready. And it's there, and it's set, and it's ready to react to something quickly. In the car, it's a Volkswagen beetle, and the heater never shut off. And it was raining, and the heater's on, and I'm in a steam bath in this damn thing, and I can barely see out the window. But when I looked out the window, I watched this whole movement, this impressionistic photo going right past me, this pointillism. And I said, oh my God, what a great shot. So I waited for the right configuration of people, and I'm shooting. The problem is I can't focus. I literally could not focus the camera. So I preset the camera wide open. I'm shooting at 2.8 now, and just hoping for the best. And that's the result. This is part of a series I'm doing on New York glass. Because remember you said you were walking, and I asked if you shot through, and especially the Saks Fifth Avenue window. I don't know what it looks like now.
It's colorful.
Is it?
Oh, yeah. Dresses.
Well, then you can't miss. Well, the other thing, too, about that window is you're not only photographing the beautiful display made by some really creative art directors, but the reflections of the city are juxtaposed. So you look at it and you go, wow, beautiful, beautiful situation, but look at those buildings that are in the thing. So it really adds to it. It's the same thing here, you know, I'm looking at all the reflections in there. Again, I'm shooting from the car. I'm stuck in traffic, and I look over there and I see this poor old woman. You know, this is a long time ago, but there's a television aerial there, you know? This is how wide it is. It's a 21 millimeter lens, and you can see both the Empire State Building and the World Trade Center, and with minimal distortion, and that's why it succeeds. It's a great, isn't that a great look?
Fantastic.
That's what I did as a kid. I'm amazed I came out without a cleft palate, because, you know, we used to light firecrackers in our teeth, you know, and then grab them and throw them at people. But the kid on the bench is the one, the kid that really makes it. I was telling David before, I don't caption photos, but once in a while one deserves it, and this one I you know, it's a political statement that I'm making. He said, only the Holy Ghost cares. And this is the way I feel about this. You ever go over to somebody's house and you go, wait until you see our wedding photographs, and you go, oh my God, no. And they pull out a white album with a little window on it, and there's a color picture of the bride and groom kissing, and you go, God, that must have been a hard shot to get. And I know I'm a snob about this, but I want to make an album that 20 years from now they can pick up and still find it very interesting to look at, because it's more fine art than just a bunch of color pictures. I'll give you an example of something, and somebody says, why don't you shoot in color? I said, well, I can't control the color. They said, what do you mean? I said, I had a bride's mother ask if she would if I would take a picture with her daughter. Great, I'd be happy to. Girl's in a green satin dress, very pretty satin dress. The mother has a red and white striped polka dot dress. And they're standing, and I'm looking, and my eyes are going like this. I go, you know, I can't do that. So if I just shoot it in black and white, I just have to worry about tones and not colors. And there's a perfect example of that. You know, it's a lovely satin dress, but, you know, if you're standing next to the other girl, the Indian girl on the other side, and she's got a red dress on, and hers is purple.
Oh my.
It's a healthy kid, isn't it? Thank you, madam. I was waiting for that.
That's great. Did you shoot in digital now?
Sorry?
You do digital?
Both.
So did you put it in black and white, the digital camera, or?
No, I shoot in color, and then when I get back to my gallery, I put it on the thing and just hit desaturate.
Great.
And you know, these things you don't set up. These things just happen. And if you're quick and you're paying attention, you're looking, you know, you'll get this photograph. Again, I'm in the dance floor. You know, I don't want to be on the side with a long lens. Dance floor is where the action is. That's where I'm going to be with a wide-angle lens.
But did the client like these photographs?
I don't care. I'm not shooting for them, and I mean that sincerely. I'm not shooting. And a friend of mine, his daughter was getting married, and she wanted a color photographer. I've known her since she was this big. I said, Michaela, anything you want, that's fine. I said that to a cousin of mine who was getting married. I said, I'm going to be there. I'm going to have my camera, and I'll take some pictures. The girl who wanted the color photographer, on her thank you note, used one of my photographs in black and white. So, and I don't mean to be rude or obstreperous about I don't care. I don't. I'm shooting for myself. If they like it, that's a bonus. And there are many, you know, many people, when they look at my portfolio, they'll go, that's exactly what I want. I had a bride tell me my wedding was a blur. I never saw my wedding. Everybody wanted a piece of us. She said, you were my witness. And when I made up the album, that was it. That's exactly what she wanted. So, and the one thing I always insist upon is in shooting the rehearsal dinner. I'll charge them a little more for it, but the reason I want the rehearsal dinner is this way I find out who the players are. You know, I don't miss a grandmother or a great uncle that's come in from Iowa or something like that.
So are you using flash?
At times, this one here, I used a flash. This was during a rehearsal, and I dragged the shutter. In other words, I dropped the shutter down to about a 15th of a second because I wanted the motion in that and the dimension that that gives you. That's Paolo. He's Sicilian, so don't laugh too long because he may find you. That's Frankie. Hey. You know what disappoints me is everybody stopped smoking. And I used to love smoking because it added another dimension. It looked like a film noir, you know, in Paris, you know, with some woman smoking or a man smoking.
You got hairspray now.
Sorry?
You got hairspray now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this girl with the cigarette in her hand, I love that. That becomes very surreal, and I was so happy to. This wedding was at Eddie Adams' studio, and that's why all that film paraphernalia is there. And remember, compositionally, you are allowed to break the rules. You know, some people look at that and go, well, it's off-centered, it's crooked, this, that, that. It's a much more interesting picture like this than if I shot it straight. And there are two rules. The first rule is there are no rules. The second rule is if you happen to find one and you want to break it, break it. Jay Maisel at his wedding 100 years ago. He looks young though, doesn't he? This is why I love these new cameras. This is literally at twilight in Vermont. A friend of mine is getting married, he's a farmer. And I don't think I could have taken it with any other camera but the Canon 5D Mark III, because I was shooting wide open at probably 3200 or 6400 ASA at a 60th of a second. Not that the Leica couldn't do it. The Leica can, but it's not as, I don't think as clean as the Canon. It's another one where I say to the girls, just look at the camera, girls. No posing, no nothing. Just look at the camera. How many people own a Holga? 3. Good. Use it. This is done with a Holga. A Holga, for you uninitiated, is a plastic camera replete with light leaks and scratches and all the things you ever want to do. I'll never forget, I got a call from Newsweek. They said, we want you to photograph the baseball strike. I said, really? I said, what the hell's a baseball strike look like? And they said, we don't know, but you always solve problems. I said, whoa. I took my Leica and my Holga up to Yankee Stadium. I'm looking around. There's some kids playing baseball in a lot. The kind of lot I grew up in. It's all concrete and apartment house and big chain link fence. And I shot it with the Leica, and they loved it. There's only one problem. The picture editor said, this photograph doesn't belong in Newsweek. It belongs in a museum, because it really was a work of art. What happened was, on the right-hand side, the numbers on the back of the film bled through. And don't ask me how that happened. And you saw a number 8, very faint, in the photograph, and you go, the heck is a number 8 doing in that photograph? And that's the way it worked out. But it worked out nicely. Down at Curtain Bluff, Antigua, West Indies. Great place to shoot a wedding. You never have to worry about light. You know, some of these photos I don't even date, because you got a picture of the Pope up there and you know when he was Pope, you know. You remember George Mitchell? Anybody remember Senator George Mitchell? That's his wedding. And what I like about this, for me, it's a triptych. You know, it's broken down in 3 sections. And it doesn't happen very often, so when it happens, I'm welcome to it. One of the greats. Great guy, wonderful old friend. McEnroe during practice. Rugby. Yannick Noah. His kid is playing for the Nets. That's a great game, girls. Any of you girls want to play rugby, go to Randall's Island. I shot this with a 24mm lens. I shot the whole thing.
Really?
I didn't even use a long lens. I wanted the short lens so I could, you know, frame these guys that are cutting in front of me.
Wow.
And greater physicality to it.
Oh my gosh. Did you crop?
Is that you?
That's it.
Maybe one or two, but 90% of it was uncropped, untouched.
Ouch.
Yeah, how indeed. But I love the interruptions here, you know, because it puts you right there.
Wow. But you weren't in the ring, right?
Sorry?
You weren't in.
Oh no, I'm not. I'm dumb, but I'm not that dumb. Look at the ball.
Unreal.
Look at her eye.
Yeah.
That's rugby. How many times have you heard the coach say, "Keep your eye on the ball"?
That's
Muhammad Ali. A goalie without a face mask? Wow.
wow.
Borg and Vetus. Carl Lewis, the Olympian. Roger Federer and a young French player, and I can't remember his name. These are 4 Grand Slam winners. Johnny Mack and his band. You know Larry Bird? Larry Bird. McEnroe, Connors, and Borg.
Oh my goodness.
Magic, Bird, Mello, and LeBron. Again, I'm going in the middle of the game. My son's friends are playing football, and it's raining.
So do you shoot continuous? How do you do that?
Gotta be.
All right.
Yeah, you have a sports camera, you know. That's Federer. That's a rugby player. They were all the same. Their boxer shorts hanging out, and not afraid of a thing. Here's a guy kissing his girlfriend. And he don't want to hug her because he's all muddied. I was playing rugby. The game was fogged out. The kids took over the pitch, and I went in the middle of the game. That's my son showing Luke how to break his leg. Connors, Mac, and Chrissy. Will Chamberlain. Behind him is Lucas. That's a place to go for photographs down in Jersey City. Really interesting. A lot of people down there. So if you're a people photographer, you know, that's the place. Anyway, that's it. What do you think? Should we pass around the hat? David, pass around the hat. That's enough. Thank you.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.